Welcome to Top Class with me, Duncan Crawford, where we're discussing Ukraine's new Ukrainian School reform programme. My guest on the podcast is a former teacher and principal who was Ukraine's Minister of Education and Science from 2016 to 2019. Liliia Hrynevych initiated the new Ukrainian School reform programme, or NUS for short, while in government. The reform programme is ongoing today and aims to move education in the country away from Soviet-era style schooling towards a more modern, student-centred model with a focus on practical skills and social and emotional skills. She's currently Vice-Rector for Academic Affairs at Kharkiv Karazin National University, and I began our discussion by asking her about the impact of Russia's war of aggression. Thank you for joining us. And obviously, Russia's war of aggression is ongoing and continues to cause massive destruction to Ukraine's education system and to the country. How would you assess the current state of education in Ukraine?
A war did devastated impact on Ukrainian education system. So we lose part of infrastructure. Almost 1 from 7 schools are damaged. Of course, they especially concentrated on frontline areas, but this is not just one impact. We have a lot of psycho-emotional problems, and this is about students and also teachers, and how teachers can help students when they are affected. So this is another big direction, how to support teachers and to equip them with different methods, how to recognize stress, trauma, and how to deal with it. Because teachers, they are on the front line with students, on the first line with students. And this is completely new skills for our teachers.
Given that there must be so many people who are in need of some kind of help, how do you go about supporting so many teachers and students who must be in need?
This is a big task because number is huge, but we try to develop with the support of different organizations also some blended courses to present this knowledge to teachers, how to help students. And this is even obligatory now for Ukrainian teacher as a professional competence, what we call a psychological competence and also ethical competence and inclusive competencies. So these 3 competencies should be developed by blended learning, for example. We develop some distance courses and then bring teachers together for offline communication to give them some support and confidence in methods what they can provide. But I would like to mention another big challenge. It's a deepest learning gaps, because these gaps widening and PISA results show this. But at the same time, we understand that teachers have big challenge when they have in class students with completely different levels and different stories from war, because they have own experience. Somebody, they are refugees. Somebody was wounded. Some experience losses in their families. Of course, now teachers should deal with this individual approach, how to overcome learning gaps. And for example, we teach teachers how to use AI as teacher assistants for individual approach to overcome these learning gaps.
I want to focus on some of your efforts to reshape Ukraine's education system. The new Ukrainian Schools reform, the NUS, because Ukraine has been trying to change its approach to education for almost a decade now. Talk us through that reform, because it has faced a lot of opposition at times.
You know, education is a very conservative system. And it's not easy to persist. Educators, they should change something, especially when they have big experience, and sometimes they can't catch all the changes and try to teach students in the same way how they practiced 10 years ago. So New Ukrainian Schools was born especially in the very transformative time of Revolution of Dignity. Because this is transformation which deals with values.
So, to people who don't know what that is, that was back in 2014 when the Yanukovych government fell and the revolution happened.
That's right. And when people stand on Maidan,
Maidan's the famous square in the centre of Kyiv where you had the mass protests, but everyone remembers those scenes with the huge protests and the incredible outpourings of joy after the success of that revolution.
It was winter time, but we open what we call Open University of Maidan. And we stand and discuss different areas of society life, especially about education. And there was a lot of very active NGOs, different professionals, businesses. And in that time, it was like a visionary sessions about Ukrainian education. So this is a roots of New Ukrainian School. And then, of course, we work with a big team and design this reform as a competence-based approach, which based also on democratic values and this child-oriented approach. Thankfully, this global context, also visionary what we had from OECD and from Andreas Schleicher, became a very stable partner for us in design and also developing a new Ukrainian school reform. So for this moment, we already have results about primary education. And when you ask any Ukrainian family who had their child at primary school, they can respond that this is another school. This is school about freedom, about child expression, about care. And I think it's a big satisfaction for us. Of course, war influenced on reform, because any real reform needs investment. And for example, in primary school, we change the premises, we equip our classrooms, we support teachers with materials. And now, when this reform already in basic school, we can't invest in the same way, because all cost of state budget delivering on defending of country.
I was told there was a time where you may have become a bit disillusioned, perhaps, with the path of progress to the reform, but then you had a conversation with someone in a car one night. Is that right? Which slightly inspired you to change course?
So I have some stories. One is introducing of independent testing in Ukraine. So we had very high level of corruption in entrance exam to the universities. And it was a time when I lead the reform to create the system of external examination. This system we call ZNO. What does it mean? External independent testing. And one time where I wasn't already director of examination center, I just stopped a taxi and was very in a hurry. But this driver all the time was very exciting and trying to speak with me.
It happens sometimes, that, doesn't it? The taxi drivers who want to talk to you when you're not particularly keen on having a conversation. It's a natural thing which happens around the world.
And I was so disappointed. I didn't want to speak with him. Just think about something else. but he tried to share with me his joy. What was about this joy? His daughter just passed external exams and became a student of medical university. She was the first student of medical university in the history of their family.
So he was ecstatic about it.
And he tried to explain me that nobody believed that she can become a student of medical university.
And this has happened because of the reforms he's telling you, is that right?
Yes, because this external examination. And he tell me, those exams what I and my team created.
Was he aware of who you were?
No.
He didn't know who you were. He was telling you this story and he had no idea who you were.
He was just very happy and tried to share his happiness that his daughter became a student in medical university.
So this conversation, which you didn't even want to have, in fact, you were almost angry about him forcing this conversation on you. What impact did that have on you?
I think some tears on eyes, because it was really unexpected. And I understood that we have something more important than our daily routine.
I can see you're slightly emotional now just talking about it. It's incredible to see. So let's talk about the reforms in a bit more detail. What does the reform programme mean for new teachers, for example, preparing new teachers for the classroom?
So our children today, they are not similar than 5 years ago. They are more subjective. They would like to know why they should study. And we need to engage them to the process. So our teachers, of course, it's likely other teachers in the world, they use instructional methods of learning. But students are more open to active learning. So active learning for teachers are more stressful and need more preparation and need more efforts. And it's not easy matter to pursue teachers that they should to switch to active methods. But what I notice, when teachers already know how to do it, they practice this. So the heart of reform is how to retrain teachers and how to give them confidence in these methods of active learning.
Are there particular challenges to that, trying to convince teachers to retrain, to change the way they've taught perhaps for many, many years?
Yes, of course, because it needs some view on education. They should share your view on education. It needs also to show them positive results of such practice. And the third, we need to support them by materials. Because if you just talk to them, please change your methods, but you don't give them any supportive materials or professional communities where they can discuss some problems. So what I see as the biggest challenge in our reform, is teacher transformation. How to support teachers, how to recognize their work, because when we expect a lot from teachers, we should give them something.
Have you faced a lot of barriers from the teachers themselves, certain teachers who really don't want to change? And if that's the case, how do you confront that? Or is it the opposite? Are there lots who are willing to change?
This is like every profession. We have this normal distribution. That part of teachers, they are agent of changes. So they are very open-minded and catch very quickly necessity of changes, and we work with them very quick. Another part, they very resistant to reform, and you can't normally perceive them. But the biggest part of teachers, they just wait. If you give them support, if you have continuing education policy, and if you motivate them to introduce new methods, they slowly transform.
And I understand that the reforms have taken place in primary school and lower secondary, and now you're moving on to tackle higher upper secondary education. So are there specific challenges to that?
I think it's harder. Of course, it's harder. Firstly, subject teachers, they are very subject-oriented. And when we are talking about integration, about holistic approach, about social emotional skills, for them, this is some additional results of their subject education, which is not in their frame of the knowledge of subject. So that's why it's harder to work with them than, for example, with primary school teachers. When we are talking about upper secondary school, there we will have another additional challenge, because upper secondary school should give choice for students. In our Ukrainian education system, the question of choice
didn't exist.
Wasn't exist, because we had set of 20 subjects for all.
And everyone had to learn exactly the same thing. Whereas under the reform program, it's about tailored learning experiences, much more specific avenues which students can take.
For this moment, the upper secondary school in New Ukrainian School should give 3 options for choice for students. You choose some profile of school, then you choose some level for learning subjects, and then you can choose some subject which are out of profile. For example, you study deeper physics, but you would like to know something about art. So this is a challenge for lyceums, how to have team of teachers who can respond on this request from students.
So what types of professional learning are most relevant for teachers in Ukrainian schools today? What sort of professional learning, training or help do they need?
Firstly, dealing with war challenges. For example, the psycho-emotional support, how to provide psycho-emotional support for students. Another part, it's about New Ukrainian School reform, active methods of teaching in exactly subjects. Also, they are interested in personal development and how to have your own resource to provide support to children. Because in wartime, people sometimes, they are very exhausted. If teacher is exhausted, he or she can help and to give some energy to their students.
So all those skills are things which new teachers coming into the profession are going to need as well. Is it easier in some ways to work with new teachers coming in, or does that present its own unique challenges as well?
This is a very important question, and I'm working now on that. So I see that our pedagogical education, teacher initial education, not respond on the request on new Ukrainian school reform and also for the war challenges. So that's why we should transform our pedagogical education and to bring new content of education, more practice in education, more partnership, university with schools, And that's why we now introduce a new model of pedagogical education. Also, we try to engage in teacher profession some people with higher education, with classical higher education, but they can become very good teachers of subject, but we should give them some psychological and pedagogical knowledge due to short program, dual program, to support them in teaching, because we experience a big shortage of teachers due to migration process, due to war, and due to, unfortunately, low status of teachers in our society. And this is a challenge in novel times, how to increase salary for teachers, to bring into profession talented people who wish to become a teacher. Because this is profession which require talent, require this love to children, require some services.
Given all the challenges which you've outlined while we've been speaking, are you hopeful for the future of education in Ukraine? What do you see in the future?
I hope, I'm sure that Ukraine will exist, will develop, and it means that our education system will develop, because education system can design the future for the country also, because it's designed for citizens of this country. So we don't have any another chance to keep our Ukrainian nation just through education and through defending our freedom and independence. So it's very connected, our freedom and education and our future. So, for example, maybe it will be too pathetic, but for us, democratic values and freedom, it's a core for education. Because in this modern time in Central Europe, we should pay by lives of people for these values. It's an obligation and it's very influence on our education.
Thank you to Liliia Hrynevych, Ukraine's former education minister, for her time. She managed to fit our discussion in between meetings, and she had to quickly run off the moment that conversation ended. So I hope she wasn't late for her next appointment. Thank you again for giving up your time. We were speaking at the Teachers of the Future Festival in Lviv in Western Ukraine, where she was also a speaker at that event. If you'd like to hear more about that festival and Ukraine's efforts to transform its education system, then do check out the previous podcast we released, which features lots of different speakers from the festival. Now, though, that's it for this episode of Top Class. If you like us, please subscribe and tune in for another episode of Top Class soon. All the best.